I told some of you guys this before, that these bracelets that I wear, right? I put on about 10 or 12 every talk before I start speaking. And these become my armor. Because every single one of these that I have hundreds, I got bags and bags. I took one of them tonight with me. But every one of these was given to me from somebody your age, a little bit younger, a little bit older, who said, Mr. Peace, if you didn't come tonight, I might not be here tomorrow. I was speaking at a middle school in Szawala, Parker Middle School, for the 8th graders about this same topic tonight. Looking at your heart and seeing people for this verse. And I ended up coming back 2 weeks later for their 8th grade graduation ceremony. And I'm sitting in the back row. And at the end of the presentation, there was a part where you could share what's on your heart, like an open mic, for the parents of the kids. And this mom got on the mic, and she couldn't even leave her seat. They brought it to her. And she said, she had a cane, she could barely stand. She said, I just wanted to be here tonight for my daughter, Julie. I wanted to see her graduate. It really meant a lot for me to be here. She said, I'm fighting cancer. I checked myself out of the hospital against doctor's orders to be here. She said, I just want to thank Mr. Peace for saving her life. So the day I spoke, and I didn't know this happened. She didn't know that I was in the back row. But the day I spoke, Julie went home. She went into her room. She took out a letter. She brought it to her mom in the living room, and she tore it up in front of her. And they hugged. She was ready to check out that night. Told the same story to a high school, Churchill High School in Livonia. At lunchtime, I stayed there, and this 11th grader came running up to me. She hugged me, and she said, Mr. Peace, I'm going to tear mine up tonight, too. She was crying. Talked to Heartland Middle School, 7th grader came up to me. This girl, she said, Mr. Peace, I got a whole journal full of those. I'm going to burn them tonight. Guys, I just spoke to Scranton Middle School in Brighton. I had a kid come up to me after my talk. This 8th grader, he said, Mr. Peace, until you came today, I thought it was a mistake. He said, I wouldn't have seen the light of tomorrow if you didn't come. Everybody check out your hands real quick. Every one of you guys has an M, right? Etched on your palms. Every one of you guys has an M, the letter M etched on your palms. That stands for Michigan. I'm joking. But this letter M, guys, stands for miracle. Miracle. Upside down W. We have to be able to see that not only in ourselves, but in other people. Guys, I just spoke last week at a retreat. In Wixom at a school. And after my talk, a kid came up to me and he pulled out his wallet. And I've never gotten a bracelet like this one. He pulled it out. And I instantly knew what it was. It was his hospital ring. He had tried taking his life a couple weeks back. And he didn't want to carry that weight anymore, or that hurt. So I said, you don't have to have that burden anymore. You are a miracle. You are loved. And I sent you here for a reason. Guys, I should know this. I got people that come up to me and they say, Mr. Peace, I'm disappointed that the gun didn't go off. And I look at them and I say, how much I love them. And I say that you're here for a reason. You're here to help other people that are going through that same amount of pain, guys. I talked tonight about bullying, right? Looking at someone's heart. We all know what bullying is. It can be physical, where you punch somebody, you kick them. It can be verbal, you say it with your mouth. It could be just where you exclude somebody, they just can't be on your team or can't sit by you. Sometimes just how you look at them is a form of bullying, right? It has to be over and over again on purpose to get power over somebody, but it can leave a mark forever. I was speaking to some kindergartners, and this 5-year-old comes up to me and says, Mr. Peace, I'm getting bullied. I said, when did it start? He said, 10 minutes ago. I said, it's probably not bullying, right? But it's just as important because even one action can stay here forever, right? But guys, why does it happen? Why does bullying happen? Why do you think? Anybody? Why do you think it happens? Yeah. So it could be how they feel about themselves. Like if I don't love myself, I'm going to maybe not love somebody else, right? Anybody else? Why do you think it happens? Bullying. Anybody? Yeah. A joke with their friends, so maybe they think it's funny, right? Could be jealousy, right? Could be just like, this person has something that I don't have or has a better talent than I have, and we're doing the comparison game, right? But the biggest reason that I've seen, and I've talked now to over 500,000 youth across this country since 2006, but the biggest reason I see why people bully is because hurt people hurt people. The easy thing to do as a human being is that if I'm hurting, the easy thing to do is to hurt someone else, right? The hard thing is to love, despite that hurts. Despite this. Can I do a couple volunteers real quick? Help me out with something? Yeah, come here. Is somebody else? I'm going to try to get someone that didn't answer yet. Anybody else up here? Yeah, come on. Okay, give these guys a round of applause. All right, so look. I want you guys to hold these cups. Come on over to the front there. You take this one. Okay, cool. All right. Actually, one more volunteer. Someone else come up real quick. Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Okay, you can just stand over there. Thanks. All right, so look, guys. When we're born, right? Who got it? When we're born, our hearts, which are as big as our fists, they start to get full of pain. So what's going to happen if I keep filling this up eventually? Right? It's going to what? Overflow. I was talking to some first graders the other day, and this one guy's like, it's going to explode. I'm like, no, it's not. But anyways, this, it says you, right? So this is us. When we're first born, guys, we are free of any hurt, any pain. We haven't experienced it yet. But as we start getting told that maybe we're a mistake or that we're worthless, that we're not good enough, we start buying into some of these lies. This cup, our heart, starts to get full. What eventually happens is, when it starts to get full, and this is partly Satan, partly sin, we see that this heart starts to become clouded, right? A lot of times because sin starts to enter our hearts. And even sometimes, for some of us, it gets so dark and so cloudy. Like there's no way out. Hurt people hurt people. That's very true. But it's also very true if we let Christ penetrate our hearts and love penetrate our souls, that healed people heal people. Because no matter how full this gets of pain, there is always room for love if we allow it. It's a choice that He can help clear some of our pain and eventually overcome sin, temptation, Satan, darkness. Give these guys a round of applause. Thank you. Appreciate that. So listen, it never fails, guys. Sometimes I'm talking to a group this size, right? Sometimes it's 2,000 or 3,000 at once, like at a school. And it never fails. There's always someone that's just kind of like not all in or cracking jokes in the back, kind of heckling a little bit, putting the speaker down. But after I get done spilling my guts and telling you all that I am, all that I have, right? Those are the same people that come up to me after my talk and say, Mr. Peace, thanks for being here today. Thanks for touching my heart. And look, I get it, because when I was your age, high school, I was the one in the back putting the speaker down. I was the one cracking jokes. And I did it because I felt so empty and so alone inside. And I needed anything to fill that void, guys. Some of that pain. I'm talking to this school in Heartland, Michigan, this alternative school. And there's a group of girls, like maybe 3 rows deep, where these guys are sitting. And the whole talk just, I can remember this clearly. I think one of them was wearing like a flannel shirt. And they're just the whole time laughing, right? Talking during the whole talk. And I just kept going, staying true. 6 months later, I get an email from this girl named Logan. She said, Mr. Peace, I don't know if you remember me or not, but I was the one in like the front row, kind of talking your entire talk. You were talking about painful memories and experiences in our lives. She said, you probably think that I didn't hear a word that you had to say, but I heard every word. But up until that point, I really hadn't had a painful memory in my life. But then my best friend overdosed. And the painful memory came. And it always happens that these same people, once they have that heart experience, they start to become open to the possibility of healing. Sometimes we hit this darkness in order for light to come. Storms have to happen for rainbows to spring up, right? For new life to happen. When were some of your most painful memories? How long ago? Anybody? When was your most painful memory? Yeah. Okay. Lost your friend. Thanks for sharing that. What's your name? Rachel. Anybody else? Painful memory? How long ago? Yeah. Okay. Your name again? Abby, thanks for sharing that. Any adults? Yeah. Lost your nephew 2 years ago. 2 years ago, lost your mom. Anybody else? I got the phone call from Grandma Flo. And I was like, no, God, please no. Tell me it ain't so. Tell me that I'm dreaming. Tell me a way to get rid of all these feelings that I'm now having of anger and fear. I just saw Peyton in June of this year. It wasn't that long ago I gave her a hug and told her I missed her and to stay in touch. She said, sure thing, but little did I know, those would be the last words coming from her throat. That I would hear prior to her death. I'd give anything to hear just half her breath. Just give me an hour, even 5 minutes, to hold her once more, just one last visit. I want to let her know it'll all be okay, but maybe she already is, and there's no need to say, where'd you go? December 20th, last year, I got a call from Grandma Flo about 2:30 in the morning, and she said, Peyton's gone. Peyton's gone. I said, what do you mean? Where where'd she go? She's like, no, she's dead. She was part of my youth group when I was at St. Joe's in South Lyon, and I took a different position at a church about 20 minutes down the street. And she stopped coming. And at first I put all this guilt on myself. That I could have done more, I could have reached out more. And I get the phone call, and she said that her dad got home late off work, about 2 in the morning, and Peyton's light was still on in her room. Went to go shut it off, and her head was against the closet. She was kneeled down. And he pulled her away, and she was already gone. She had overdosed on heroin. And I got there, and I saw where she was. I didn't see her, but I saw the spot, and I was in so much pain and hurts, but I realized that after I had started hurting and started closing myself off to certain people and how I treated them, not really caring, I finally made a conscious decision to start living my life the way that Peyton would have wanted me to. Making sure she didn't die in vain by sharing her story. But also making sure that I'm treating others with respect and love and kindness the way that Christ has treated all of us. And what's funny is that what I asked all of you to just share about what your most painful memory was, when it was, that all I asked was when the most painful memory was. But every one of you told me what it was. And so many more of you would have raised your hand. I know it's not easy in front of everybody, right? But that tells me that that pain is still here. It's still raw. Because you can remember it like it happened yesterday, right? I'm doing this assembly at an elementary school. And a lot of times I draw like a heart on a board, kind of like this. And I tell everybody, pretend that this is your heart, right? You guys can give it up for my heart. Thank you. Appreciate it. Let's take it years. And so I tell them, look, pretend this is your heart. Just think back to one of the most painful moments in your life where somebody just beat you down or just hurt you physically, emotionally, verbally, spiritually. Don't say it out loud, just remember it. And that's like one mark on your heart, right? And then if you think that 5 people keep doing the same mean thing to you every day for 1 month straight, just over 1 month, guys, that's 5 times 30, anybody? 150, good job. 150 marks on your heart, right? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 27, 38, 49, 57, 75, 82, 111, 115, 116, 140, 145, 150. So pretty soon you got 150 marks on this heart. Can't do them all, right? But if you guys are looking up close, the heart's 2 colors. What 2 colors? Black and blue. Same color as bruises. Except these ones you can't see. You can only feel these, right? I had 2 6-year-olds come up to me after my talk, Danielle and Angelina. And the heart that I drew was like 3 times this size, completely colored in. And they were 6 years old, first graders. They said, Mr. Peace, our hearts look like that. Because we're getting bullied and teased and put down. And I'm thinking to myself, they're in first grade, they're 6 years old. How's their heart going to look in 4th grade or 7th grade or beyond, right? But just as I made a choice to become a healed person and heal other people too, I came back 2 years later, and they saw me in the hallway, they came right up to me, they said, Mr. Peace, we forgave the people that hurt us. We're showing them love, and we're doing okay. My friend Irene Kopko, She just turned 102 February 15th, right? Irene, she still emails. She doesn't do Instagram, Twitter, but she still emails, right? And Irene, she's 102. It's a little bit older than you. But Irene, I'm at her birthday party just recently, like a couple weeks ago. We're kicking it, eating some cake, right? I'm like, Irene, tell me about your life. Like, tell me the good times, the bad times, the sad times, the glad times, times that rhyme with "ad." And I said, like, tell me your most painful memory. She says to me, Mr. Peace, it was over 90 years ago. She remembered it like this, like it just happened. She said, I was in 4th grade. I was at the front of the class, and this boy in front of the entire class of like 30 people, he made fun of my height because I was short. And I just told myself that story for so long, until one day, she made a choice to become a social worker, to devote her life to helping people that felt like her. Hurt people, but healed people, heal people. I got a friend in his 30s, he's in his 30s now, but back in 5th grade, him and his buddies, it was their job to put down the kid who sat alone at lunch. And every day for 1 year straight, they called him a loser, they called him a loner, every day. 6th grade rolls around, and they merge all these middle schools in the area into one mega middle school. So the student population size skyrockets. And my friend that was kind of popular at the old school, his popularity rankings start to drop a little bit because he's getting lost in the crowd. First day of school, 6th grade, he's forced to sit alone at lunch too. And guess who he has to sit next to? The kid that he put down. And so he sits down, and the kid looks at him, and he says, it sucks, doesn't it? It sucks, doesn't it? Now he felt just a little bit how this person felt. I had a counselor one time. She came like from sitting back where my guy in the orange is at, and she came up to where I was talking to the students during the assembly. She said, oh my gosh, Mr. Peace, I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but I just got to share something real quick. And she said that her most painful memory was 40 years ago in 2nd grade. 40 years ago. She said it was right before lunchtime when this group of popular girls came up to her and said, hey, Kate, you can sit with us today at lunch. And Kate was just kind of average in terms of being popular. And these girls were like, yeah, Kate, come sit with us. And Kate's like, are you serious? Like, for real? They're like, yeah, come on. Like, she's like, oh my gosh, okay. She's like, this is awesome. Like, this is my shot. I'm going to finally fit in. I'm going to finally be accepted for who I am. So she gets her lunch tray from the lunch line, and she goes to sit down at this table with the girls. And as soon as she gets there, they all stand up on their chairs. And they scream across the lunchroom so everybody can hear them. And they say, hey everybody, check out Kate. She can't even afford nice clothes. And she drops her lunch tray and she runs out crying. Kate's parents didn't have a lot, and sometimes she had to wear the same outfit twice a week to school. And she was teased because of that. Well, she first became a 2nd grade teacher, so that would never happen to any of her students at the school she would be teaching at. And then became a counselor. Sorry, I just hit the microphone button off. An accident. Sorry, Mr. Microphone. But she became a counselor at this elementary school to help her students with the same issue. Became healed. To heal other people. Guys, there was this senior in high school. His name was Dennis. Right? Charming, good looks, handsome, muscular, kind of like my physique, right? And this guy made it, his living, his job, really, to point out the imperfections in everybody around him. And comes to senior year, it's raining outside like it was earlier today, and he takes his bike indoors to work on it in the basement just for a minute. See what's going on with it, make sure it's all tuned up. Something was blocked by the engine. He starts it up, it hitches back, sparks, catches a fire, catches a flame, bike explodes. He gets third-degree burns over his entire body except the bottom of his feet. Now this person that made it, his living to point out the ugliness or whatever he thought it was of other people wasn't looking the best himself. And when it came time to try to reach out for support, a lot of people weren't there for him. He became a speaker to help people to finally become healed himself, and to forgive himself for what he had done. My friend that made fun of this person became a youth worker. The kid that sat alone at lunch to help people that were feeling like him in that situation. And I remember this third grader named Dominic. He came up to me, I'm checking out at school, I'm signing out, ready to leave the office after my assemblies one day at this elementary school in Michigan. And Dominic comes up to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Peace, do you want to know what my most painful memory was?" I said, "Yeah, tell me." He said, "It was 2 years ago in first grade, and I had my heart crushed by this girl. I had my heart broken." And I'm thinking to myself, kids are starting to date when they're younger nowadays. Did you break up with them? Was it Facebook official? And all these things were going through my mind, But it wasn't that at all. So I sat down with Dominic and he said, "Mr. Peace, there's a fifth grader who every day for 2 months straight, 2 months in a row, told me that you're never going to have any friends. You're never going to have any friends." A fifth grader to a first grader. This was 2 years ago. And he was in first grade. Guys, think about the impression level, right? You're never going to have any friends. Fifth grader to a first grader. And Dominic said, "It felt like my heart broke in a billion pieces. I went home that night and cried myself to sleep. I didn't want to come to school anymore. Mr. Peace, I didn't even want to be born." But then he says something to me that I will never forget, guys. Dominic, he said, "Mr. Peace, but you know what?" I said, "What?" He said, "Now I have best friends. Now I have best friends." How many of you guys have best friends? All right. Why is that person your best friend? Can I get a couple answers? How come? Why is that person your best friend? Anybody's best friend sitting next to them? Give them a high five there. All right. But yeah, why is that person your best friend? So she's known you forever, okay? What else? Why is that person your best friend? Anybody? Fun to be around? So they kind of make you laugh? Ha ha! All right. Anybody else? Best friend, oh, sorry. They accept you for who you are. That's huge. Thank you. Yeah. So even though you do some weird things, she's still okay with it, right? Okay. Anybody else? Best friend? Yeah. Loyal? Yeah. Been through a lot together? Common interests? You guys got stuff in common? Okay. Stuff in common. Great. How come nobody's mentioning how much money that person's parents have or don't have? Or how much that person has or doesn't have? What kind of house they live in? Whether they got the PS4, Xbox One, iPhone 7, just joking on how to get it. But how come nobody's mentioning the brand name on the clothes, the Abercrombie or the Aeropostale or the Nike or the Under Armour A or the Old Navy or the Victoria's Secret Pink A, even though a lot of the clothing isn't pink, but it says the word pink on it? How come nobody mentioned that stuff in the back? Doesn't matter. What were you going to say, Abby? Same thing. It's what's on the inside that counts. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 7 says that man, woman, us, looks at the outward appearance. But God looks at the heart. I was given a talk at another elementary, and this 5th grader comes up to me. Her first name is Cheyenne. Cheyenne is the capital of? Wyoming. Nice. And the 1st grader said it was Alaska yesterday. I was like, nope, but you're close. Cheyenne came up to me and said, hey, Mr. Peace, there's a girl that moved to our school this past fall. She's in a wheelchair for life. She's in a wheelchair permanently. She said the first day this girl got to school, she went up to her, Cheyenne went up to her, and she said, do you want to be my friend? Girl said, yeah. And this is after Cheyenne's friends pulled her aside. They said, hey, don't even talk to this girl. She's different, she's weird, right? But Cheyenne didn't listen to him. She still went up to her. She said, hey, want to be friends? The girl said, yeah. And ever since that day, Cheyenne includes her lunch, recess, library, the hallways, everywhere. And then she said something to me, guys, that was just like the wisdom of this 5th grader, right? She said, Mr. Peace, when I see her, I see this. Before this, I see her heart before this wheelchair, before this piece of equipment. Guys, if we treated everybody like we treated our best friend, do you think we'd still have bullying in heaven? I think we still get into some fights, some arguments, because I do with my best friends about some things, but we always work it out because we're best friends. There's a speaker named Nick. He's from Sydney, Australia. He's this tall. He was born without arms and legs. He's a speaker like myself, and he just got married a couple of years ago. They already had their 2nd child. He's got no arms, no legs. Life without limbs. And he's given this talk at a school. It's about the size of this church, this sanctuary, the gym, except there's some bleachers on both sides. And after his talk ends, people start to exit. They start to leave, right? Well, there's this mom there. There's a mom there with her 3-year-old daughter. And just as the talk ends, she lets her 3-year-old start to run around. And we know what 3-year-olds do, right? They just do whatever they want. So she starts twisting and turning and leaping and hopping and cartwheels, and she starts to float. And no, I'm joking. But she was just going everywhere, right? She's the same height as Nick, and pretty soon she's running full steam right towards him. Doesn't even see him, right? They're the same height. She's running like full steam. And last second, corner of her eye, she catches just this little glimpse, and he can't move out of the way, right? He's got no arms and legs. And so finally, last second, she just like pumps on the brakes, and her and Nick are nose to nose. And this 3-year-old looks him up and down. And she's like, what's going on here? Right? She's never seen anybody without arms and legs. But her next move, without really hesitating, she puts both of her arms behind her back like this. And she hugs him with her neck like this. And it was so awesome because she didn't care what brand he had on his clothes. She didn't care how tall he was. She didn't care whether he had arms or legs. She only cared about this. But guys, it's not easy to be able to see this first. So many times things get in the way, right? love our enemies is not an easy thing to do. I got an email a couple months ago from this kid named John. He was a 7th grader. And he said, "Hey, Mr. Peace, you spoke at our school a couple weeks ago. And this afternoon, I got tripped by this bully in the hallway in front of everybody, right? So he fell down, and he said that he got right back up, and he walked over to the bully, and he shook his hand, smiled at him, and said, 'Have a great day.' And he walked away. And the bully's mouth just dropped. And everybody watching in the hallways, their mouth drops. Because they expected tears. They expected him to punch back or fight. But he did the exact opposite. And probably what this person needed the most. This person that's hurting inside, screaming inside for love, for compassion, for kindness, he gave him that. He also took away the bully's power over him and gained it back for himself. It never happened again. But there are cases where people keep doing something and we have to get help, right? And whether people are in kindergarten or 12th grade, they'll say, "Well, Mr. Peace, if I do that, then I'm tattletaling," right? But I tell them about this 8th grade girl named Elizabeth who sent me a message, DM, on Insta. That's short for Instagram. Sometimes I call it the gram. Sometimes I call it the IG. Just depends how I'm feeling that day. But she sent me a DM and she said, "Mr. Peace, my ex-boyfriend is calling me every name in the book in the school hallways in front of everybody." And it started to become very serious. It started to actually become a harassment case. So I forwarded it on to the school counselor. She brought him, her, and a police officer into the office, and they ended it right there. 2 weeks later, I came back for lunch, and she ran up to me, crying. She said, "Mr. Peace, you saved my life." That's how serious it was getting. I got a friend named G, short for Gina, from Chicago. And her freshman year, she had a friend who said he was her friend. And he would have a tendency on certain days, he has a big booming voice, right? This big like football player guy. And sometimes he'd be walking down the freshman hallway and he'd scream out, boom out, "Hey, yo, G, you're looking kind of big today, girl," in front of everybody. And she just kind of brushed it off. Well, one day, somebody videotaped it. They put it online. Got thousands of views overnight. And she saw this, saw the comments. And she went home that day. She looked at herself in the mirror and she said, "You know what? Maybe I am looking a little big today." And so she skipped dinner that night. The next 4 nights, the next 4 weeks, the next 4 years. She found herself in the hospital, close to death. But he was just joking, right? Guys, you can never tell me that when it comes to someone's life, your safety, that it's ever tattletale. But it takes courage, guys. It takes guts to stand up for what's right. I remember being back in high school. I was a senior. And it was like our high school gym class. I was playing quarterback that day. And we were down by 4 points, final play before we had to head, right? So we needed a touchdown to win. So on my right, I got 2 wide receivers that are actually on the high school football team, right? So my mind, even before I hike it, I'm going to them no matter what, even if they're like double covered, triple covered. On my left is Paul. And Paul's a freshman. Paul's overweight. Paul doesn't have a lot of friends. Paul doesn't have a lot. And right before I hike it, we're in the huddle. My 2 friends said, "You better throw him on a bus." And I remember thinking, blue 42, red 18, green beans. What's my screen? Sorry. And I go back in the pocket, right? I got my guys trying to block for me. My two guys go out. Paul just walks. And so what happened though was Paul's defender, the guy playing defense on him, leaves him and double teams my best guy. And so I'm trying to buy some more time in the pockets, two-hand touch, and I'm going back and I'm trying to maybe thread the needle, and they're super covered, right? Oh my God, it's going to be an interception. I'm about to get tagged, last second, I just throw a prayer towards Paul. And I'm like, oh, please catch the ball. And so Paul's in the end zone, standing back here with both of his arms just like this. Like it's going to be a field goal, right? And I remember this, the ball hits him right in the shoulder and bounces like 5 feet in front of him. And I've never seen somebody this big, or just, I've never seen anybody in general fly as far and as fast as Paul. He was like parallel to the ground, right? And he dove after that ball, and he pulled it in somehow, and he went down the ground into the end zone and held the ball just like it was his baby. He said, I won't let you go, baby. I won't. And he caught it, and we're all just like, oh my gosh, Paul. We were so happy. We just like went over, running to him, like, that's Paul, you did it, yeah. And he was like, oh, thanks, guys, thanks. And went back in the locker room, and my two friends were like, I can't believe that you throw it to us. I just kind of brushed it off. 2 weeks later, I see Paul running on the sidewalks by the high school. And I'm driving my car, I'm a senior riding in my car. When I pulled alongside him, I've never seen Paul run in my life. Like he walked to the end zone, right, for that play. And Paul, like all the miles in gym class, he would walk him, right? And I see him running, I'm like, Paul, what's up? He's like, hey Kevin, how's it going? I was like, hey man, and I said, what are you doing? Like you're running. And he said, yeah, I just kind of started this past week and I was trying to feel better about myself, get back in shape. I said, well, when did that all start? And he said, the second that you chose to throw me the ball. Guys, we all have that power. But it takes extreme courage, right? John 15:13 says, greater love has no one than this, than to lay down your life for one's friends. And sometimes that's not literally, sometimes that's figuratively, right? Because Cheyenne, myself, so many stories that I have, people risk everything. Judgment by others, getting bullied themselves, getting teased themselves, harassed themselves, ridiculed themselves, put down themselves, just to include somebody else in this world that otherwise would not feel included or be included because they're different. Not because you feel sorry for them or feel guilty or ashamed, but because you just want to make them feel some sense of normalcy that so many of us take for granted. And make them feel a little welcome. And guys, to risk everything just to include someone else, see him as a best friend like your own, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And I know someone else who risked harassment and ridicule, embarrassment, so all of us could be here today. And that was beautiful too. But you see, guys, all of this is a choice. All of it's a choice. If we were to look at our own hearts first, see the beauty there, and then go and see that in someone else. Right? We got to love ourselves before we love our neighbor. Like my opening song said. I was speaking at a school. I came back to have lunch with the students, and this first grader named Trey, he's probably like this tall, right? He sees me walk in the lunchroom, and this is right after spring break. He's like, it's Mr. Peterson. to talk to you. He's like, hey, Mr. Peace, do you remember when you were telling us to treat people with more kindness and love and compassion and respect? I said, yeah. He's like, well, I went home that night, and I asked my dad to start treating me, my mom, and my brother with more kindness and respect and love. And he told me that his dad looked at him and said, you don't ever talk to me like that. I'm an adult. Don't ever talk to me like that. And he threw him down. His parents ended up splitting that week. There's a lot of other things leading up to it. He came back to school enraged. This little first grader, this 7-year-old. He said, Mr. Peace, people are going to feel how I feel. They're going to feel my pain, my hurt, my heart. I looked at Trey and I said, hey, you still have a choice to be a great brother, a great son, and one day if you choose to break that cycle, a great father. Our eyes are locked. I see a tear coming down his cheek. I'll never forget his next words to me. He says, I like chicken. I said, what? He said, yeah, Mr. Peace, they're serving chicken tenders for lunch, like you gotta have them. They're so good. I'm like, what? And so I come back a week and a half later. This first grader's mind's on to the next topic, but I come back a week and a half later. He sees me in the hallway. He says, Mr. Peace, come here. I'm doing what we talked about. I'm choosing to show people the love, to show them love and kindness and compassion. And he's a 7-year-old, first grader. And I'm thinking to myself, if he can do that, why can't all of us? And I'm not saying that pain ain't going to come, guys. Pain's what unites us. If you're a human being, you have billions of nerve endings in your body. You will feel pain at some point in your life. But you always have a choice how you're going to respond to it. As a hurt person hurting someone else, sometimes that hurt person being ourselves. When that cup overflows, a lot of times it's onto ourselves, like self-harm, right? Sometimes it's onto other people. We see that too often in the news. Or we deal with it. And we become healed to heal other people because the need is there, guys. Stories like this one. This is the Teddy Stoller story. I know I'm getting close to my time. Teddy Stoller certainly qualified as one of the least. Disinterested in school, wearing musty, wrinkled clothes, hair never combed. One of those kids in school with a deadpan face, expressionless, glassy, unfocused stare. When Miss Thompson spoke to Teddy, he always answered in monosyllables. Unattractive, unmotivated, and distant, he was just plain hard to like. Even though his teacher said she loved all in her class the same, deep down she wasn't being completely honest. Whenever she marked Teddy's papers, she got a certain perverse pleasure of putting X's next to the wrong answers, and when she put the F's, she'd put them at the top of the papers in big red ink with a flare. But she should have known better. She had Teddy's records. She knew more about him than she wanted to admit. The records read, first grade, Teddy shows promise with his work and attitude of the Port Huron situation. Second grade, Teddy could do better. Mother is seriously ill. He receives little help at home. Third grade, Teddy's a good boy, but too serious. He's a slow learner. His mother died this year. Fourth grade, Teddy's very slow but well-behaved. His father shows no interest. Christmas came. The boys and girls in Miss Thompson's class brought her gifts. They piled them on her desk, crowded around to see her open them. Among them was one from Teddy Stoller. She was surprised that he brought one, but he did. His was wrapped in brown paper, some Scotch tape that held a little note on it. It said, for Miss Thompson from Teddy. When she opened it, out fell a gaudy rhinestone bracelet with half the stones missing and a bottle of cheap perfume. The other boys and girls started to laugh over his gifts, but Miss Thompson at least had enough sense to quiet them by immediately putting on the bracelet and putting some of the perfume on her wrist. Holding her wrist up for the others to smell, she said, doesn't it smell lovely? The children, taking their cues from the teacher, agreed with oohs and ahs. At the end of the day, when school was over, the other children left. Teddy stayed behind. He came over to her desk and said softly, Miss Thompson, you smell just like my mother. And her bracelet looks really pretty on you too. I'm glad you like my presence. When Teddy left, Miss Thompson got down on her knees and asked God to forgive her. The next day when the children came to school, they were welcomed by a new teacher. Miss Thompson was still her name, but she had become a different person. She was no longer just a teacher. She had become an agent of God, an agent of love. She was now a person committed to loving her children and doing things for them that would live on after her. She helped all the children, but especially the slow ones, especially Teddy. By the end of the school year, Teddy showed dramatic improvement. He caught up with most of the students, was even ahead of some. She didn't hear from Teddy for a long time. Then one day she received a note that read, Dear Miss Thompson, I want you to be the first to know I will be graduating second in my class. Love, Teddy Szawala. 4 years later, another note came. Dear Miss Thompson, they just told me I would be graduating first in my class. I wanted you to be the first to know the university has not been easy, but I liked it. Love, Teddy Szawala. And 4 years later, Dear Miss Thompson, as of today, I am Theodore Szawala, MD. How about that? I want you to be the first to know that I'm getting married next month, the 27th to be exact. I want you to come and sit where my mother was sad she was still alive. You're the only family I have now. Dad died last year. Love, Teddy Szawala. Miss Thompson went to that wedding and sat where Teddy's mother would have sat. She deserved to sit there. She had done something for Teddy that he could never forget. And that's what all of us have the power to do, guys, if we keep this open. We did some icebreakers earlier. There's a reason that I'm crazy, but there's also a reason that Mr. Peace used cotton balls and bananas. If we had time, I would use pantyhose. But the idea behind it was a quote from St. Teresa of Avila, who said, I'll make sure I get this right for you guys. Christ has no body now but yours. No hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which he looks compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which he walks to do good. Yours are the hands through which he blesses all the world. Yours are the hands, yours are the feet, yours are the eyes. Doesn't say nose, but you guys get it. You are the body. You are his body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. If something touched your heart tonight, you can just raise your hand. I believe, God does anoint me to speak truth to you. Fear is false evidence appearing real. And for some of you, you've been given some false evidence. You've been given some untruths. You're not mistakes. You're not worthless. You are good enough. You are miracles. You are worthy. You have to believe that. You have to buy that, guys. And the need is so apparent, even more now than ever. We see it every day, right? On TV, on the internet. We have to keep this open. We have to let healing happen because we never know when someone else needs us. And I get why so many people tell me, Mr. Peace, no one notices me. I get why people are so much in pain that people just walk by them in the hallways and they can't even realize it. I get it because the person walking past them is going through so much too. And if that gets so full, but we don't let him come in to heal, we're blind. The 2x4, the splinters in our eyes, and we can't see our fellow human beings around us that are so much in need. We got to fix home first before we can try to help someone else. We got to put our own oxygen mask on before we can help someone else with theirs. And oxygen, we can't see it, right? But we need it to survive. Sometimes that's him too. Sometimes we can just feel it. Like these marks. What's so crazy about this is that people think that if I let that hurt out onto someone else, or through a destructive activity, that maybe it'll bring more healing, but all it does is add more marks on the other person's heart and on our hearts too. But the ironic thing is that when we start to forgive ourselves and look to love other people and let ourselves become healed, it not only erases marks on people's hearts, but on our hearts too. You see, too many choose the path of least resistance. It's easy, it's simple, it lacks persistence. Yet this route, though it may be a shorter distance, does everything it can to compromise our existence. Assistance, yes please, and why I'm so insistent that we rise up as one and we pump our fist. It shows our desire to always reach higher, a choice to overcome. Any boulder or hurdle you face in your life, some say I'm crazy, I am for Christ. A young whippersnapper, I chose to fight back, crack open the word and put down the crack. But praying in public ain't a popular thing. You can get made fun of for praising the King. Just know that scars are a sign that something was worth fighting for. You see, one heart of courage is a majority. On fire for God, a priority. Don't fear those who kill just the body. No, rather fear the supreme authority. Him who can destroy both body and soul, and him whose rebellion brought nail holes, to help us avoid a bed of red coals and not be afraid of resistance. Guys, thank you for touching my heart tonight. Like I've told these people here, if you were given a gift, go and share that gift with someone else. Don't take anything for granted. There's no guarantees, right? Every breath has to count. We all have that shared purpose, that shared responsibility. If it makes sense to bring me into your school to speak, I'd be honored to. If I got the time and energy, I'll have my table out here. You guys can get some extra cards. Please just stop by, give me a hug. Please keep praying for my ministry too. I always need support. Can't do this alone. If our Savior needed help carrying his cross, right? What does that say about us? Also, I do house parties, so in terms of hip-hop and stuff, I'm joking, but you guys really did touch me. It makes sense to come to your youth group. Some of you guys that go to public schools, I can't really mention God during my talk, but if people see my cross, so reach out to me on social media or at lunch, I can share about my faith with you. And Jesus said he had to become all things to all people, so sometimes we have to play that game in order to try to reach some lives, right? To try to save some souls. But like my shirt says, keep your head up. That's how it's supposed to be. I had a fourth grader come up to me and say, hey, Mr. Peace, your shirt's upside down. I said, yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. But if you're feeling down, let's just keep your head up. And the way that I'm able to is my rock solid foundation, Christ. Let's just close. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for bringing us here this evening. Without you, we are nothing. And every breath, we ask that you make it holy, that you penetrate our wounds, that you come in to help heal. I'm only here to remove interference, but God, you are the true Savior that can bring healing. Please help us believe that we are worth something. It doesn't matter if 100 people surround us and tell us that we're amazing. We have to buy it ourselves. We were bought for a price, and we are priceless. Even when we feel useless, Father, you still use us. Please help us have the strength to persevere when times get tough, to look to you in times of suffering, that it brings us closer to you, not further from you. We pray all this Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses. We forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all evil. Amen. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. That's all I got, guys, for my energy for tonight. God bless you guys.